Share my screen ready. So this is chapter 6 of Why Is This Happening to Me Again with Michael Rice. What is reality? It takes courage to face yourself and be vulnerable enough to feel true feelings and honest enough to look at your real thoughts. And all these sessions are recorded, and these sessions are shared publicly to support others in these teachings.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear lady.
And how are you?
I'm rocking, ready to go.
Yay.
Been working in the garden today.
Awesome.
Ready to get my brain going a little bit. Well, our radio show went well today too, but
I didn't get to watch today's one. Been a busy day. It's been sports day at school for my son.
we hit some good stuff. We had a fellow who's been doing this work for about 20 years, and this guy's a big guy. He's about, I don't know, probably 6'6", maybe weighs 300 pounds, big guy. And he was sharing that that he went into a bank that he doesn't like to go into today, and they started screwing him around, and he just kind of went off on them. He said he stopped in the middle of his going off on them and turned around and said, "Excuse me, I'm going to go put myself in timeout." He went over and he sat down. He pulled his app out and he did a worksheet. Got back up and bank said, "Oh, it's all taken care of. Thanks, bye." It was hilarious. He put himself. I mean, this guy is just big, and I guess he was being kind of burly.
Yes.
And he just said, "I'm going to put myself in timeout." And everybody just looked at him like they were in some kind of shock.
That's a great use of aware enough to put himself on timeout.
Yes, there's a book we published for children called Healing Children, Loving Children. It was written by a school teacher named Julie Haverstick, and she worked for years in the public school system, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and developed worksheets for kindergartners and the whole teaching, based on this work. And one of the things she created, as opposed to timeout, was that she created a love chair in her classroom. So if a kid was being, hard to get along with, who's picking on somebody, he'd go to the love chair, and everybody in the class knew, they'd been taught the love exchange, and everybody in the class knew that this kid needed some extra love. Or she actually, once she instituted that, she shared with me one time that she had a kid that came in and had a particularly, trying, abusive morning with his parents that morning, and he came right into school, took his coat off, went over and sat in the love chair. It was just, I need some support, I need some love here. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool what can be done with the teachings.
Yeah, that's a lovely way to do it as well.
Yeah.
Mm. So I'll just take us through these slides quickly. So I'm Yinka, and I run Hear My Voice Book Club, which is an inspirational self-development books, and all the events can be found on Meetup. Michael joins us the 2nd and 4th Thursday of every month, but will be with us for the next few weeks to do A Course of Miracles as well.
Yeah, the 4th and 5th Sunday or Thursday, we're here too.
Thursday.
Doing Course in Miracles.
And this is what's on this week. Not got much left. We've got children's meditation tomorrow with Shoshana and art that we do afterwards. And Saturday, Sunday cardio workout. 8 AM Sunday is Joe Dispenza's meditation. Project Coherence. Got our Manchester and Liverpool in-person events. We did our Manchester one yesterday. Liverpool on the 26th. So second Wednesday of every month in Manchester, last Wednesday of the month in Liverpool, and that's Law of Attraction and Abraham Hicks teachings.
A little too far for me to come.
Yes, that would be awesome if you could.
It would. That would be really nice.
Who knows? I might come over there.
I would also.
Well, with raising our granddaughter 2 to 3 days a week, our chances of moving far away from Bristol, Virginia, right now are kind of slim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when children are involved, because that's why I stay close to home.
I understand.
So we also have WhatsApp groups keeping people connected. And Hear My Voice Book Club runs non-profit events that everyone can take part regardless of financial status. But I do ask if you feeling you want to donate or feel the desire to donate. If you donate anything to Michael directly for these events that he puts on and share all the teachings that he shares with us. And we're going to start off with some shoulder rolls because I like to get our bodies ready for the session as well. So nice deep breath in, drawing up the shoulders all the way to the ears. And as you exhale, bring the shoulders back and down. Nice deep breath in. And exhale. One more time, nice deep breath in. And exhale. And if you're open and willing, you want to give your body a good shake out, ready for this session, you're welcome to stand up. If you don't want to just stay sat in your seat, you're welcome to as well. But it's all about just getting something moving. There we go. We'll introduce Michael. So Michael is the founder and director of Heartland Self-Healing Centre. Michael lectures and is a teacher of health and healing, true meaning of true forgiveness. The focus of this study has combined body, mind, principles, physics, and ancestor Aramaic studies into a unique body and pioneering work in the field of self-healing, healing through relationships, anger, and grief resolution, world peace, and inner process of forgiveness. And Michael is also married to Jeannie Rice.
I'm blessed.
Yes, very blessed.
Yeah, for sure.
And I will also put in the chat all Michael's details if you want to find all his sessions and his PDF as well. And on YouTube, it will be added in the YouTube part as well.
Just on that point of being married to Jeannie, I can remember a time in my life where, before this work, where I could hardly say the marriage word. And it is the most awesome gift I've ever given myself to be in this relationship, and with a relatively, not necessarily perfectly, but a relatively sane mind, which I realized in the early years of my life was pretty bizarre. So it's amazing the changes in reality that you can get. And where we're going to go with this session today is to look at the fact that our minds construct the world we see. Our minds generate the pictures that our eyes seem to see outside of us. The fact is, the eye sees nothing. There's no such thing as seeing. The eye is literally an antenna. All it does is receive frequencies of light. Information is carried on those frequencies of light, and once it moves through the eye, it's converted to an electrochemical frequency that causes content in the mind, brain cells, to fire. And when those brain cells fire, the brain generates this construct we call reality. Once you recognize that, then you recognize that, for the average person, the world that we think we live in truly does not exist. What exists is an unknown reality that we interpret through the content of our minds. You can bet that when a mosquito enters the room, it doesn't look over and see, oh, I have a picture of a turtle on the wall, or I have my whiteboard, and then there's this fluorescent light over my head, and there's a computer, and there's a man sitting there. The mosquito doesn't do that. The mosquito doesn't live in that frequency range. The mosquito looks for infrared energy, heat, blood, food. And so the mosquito gets what it needs. And when each of us realize that our minds are structured to select from an unknown actuality that which is useful to us. And once we recognize that, then you realize that your mind comes in qualities. If you have, let's say we go from 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely accurate representation, 1 being a very poor representation of actuality. Person who lives at a 1 lives a very traumatic life because they think they're looking out there and responding to things as they happen out there, but most of what they're responding to is what's happening in their minds. This is something we've been teaching for decades, and back, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, discovered a quote from a book written by the CIA. The CIA here in America spent, I don't know how many millions of taxpayers' dollars doing a study on the human mind. And there was one particular chapter, and actually you can go to our website and download that chapter or the whole book if you want to read it. But they're looking at human intelligence and how it works. They're trying to get the best information from their analysts that they can. And here literally is the result of their millions of dollars and who knows how many hours spent. Here is one of the conclusions that they wrote in their book. Here it is. Perception is demonstrably an active rather than passive process. It constructs rather than records reality. People continuously construct their own version of reality. Now, if you've ever had a conflict with someone, in fact, I'll just ask the question, and it's rhetorical. You don't need to put your hand up or anything. But has anybody here ever been accused of saying something you absolutely never said and doing something you absolutely never did? And virtually everybody, of course, kind of grins and puts their hand up. Of course I have. Now, notice the state of mind every time that you've been accused of something like that the person accusing you was in. And notice their minds were fueled by an improper fuel. Every time you were accused, the person accusing you was in some form of hostility or fear. And their mind distorted their perception of you and literally showed them constructed a reality that absolutely never happened. Now, if that makes sense to you, you can say, yeah, I can remember when Harry did that, and Bill did that. Yeah, I remember that. The lesson to get out of that is when you're in hostility or fear, your mind is unplugged from the proper power supply it's designed to work on, and your mind is lying to you. Every time the human mind shows you a picture and there's hostility or fear attached, your mind's lying to you. The objective of this work is to clean up each of our own minds and to be there to support each other in doing the same. Getting rid of the data that distorts reality. There is an energy that's designed to fuel our human minds. And the easiest way I know to establish for yourself what that energy is simply imagine or go back to the moment where you first held a newborn child. Tap in to the essence of that newborn. Now, that's a question that Jeannie, my wife, and I have asked of tens of thousands of people all over the country. And 100% of the time, the answer always comes back as a word that is a descriptor based in some form of love, something related to the word love. So people come back with purity, sweetness, awesomeness, but it's always something based in love. Now, I'd offer there's a reason. The reason for that is because that's literally, and I don't care, we've asked this question in Greece, I've asked it in China, I've asked it in Tibet, I've asked it all over the world in all kinds of cultures. And everybody always comes back with the same thing. And notice when you hold that newborn and tap into the essence of the newborn, notice that or ask yourself the question, is the newborn loving me, or is the newborn love? Now, clearly, the newborn probably isn't even aware that you're there, at least cognitively. So the newborn is not loving you. The newborn is love. Every one of us starts out the same. And that energy of love, I would offer, is what's designed to fuel our human minds. The world, by and large, has a specialty. And the specialty is to knock the awareness that you are the presence of love out of you, instill a reality that will give that person control, and destroy the presence of love. That's the game of the world today. The objective of this work is to bring each of us to the point where we can recognize ourselves as the presence of love and restore a proper fuel supply. Notice that once the world has knocked the love out of you, then along about, those teenage years, they'll push you out the door and say, now go find somebody to love, or go find somebody to love you. And love becomes a verb. And everything from there is distorted until there's a correction of that. You'll notice when we do the reality management worksheet, the first thing you do is put your name on the worksheet and then acknowledge who you are. Begin building the brain cells and converting your mind back to a love-based device. Then you have a device that will work properly. Until then, well, just take a look around at the crazies that are going on in the world. I'm not sure where everybody here is from, but particularly today, take a look at the crazies that are going on in America. It's pretty bizarre. It's time for a wake up, time for us to return to the truth of who we are. So that's where we're going to go with this chapter on reality. So delighted to be here with you, Inga, and everybody else.
Thank you. So remember, throughout this, me and Michael will also remind you to breathe, because holding your breath is exactly how you acquire a past about something and carry it with you. Holding your breath attaches the pain of an experience to a reality in the mind. If that reality is triggered even through external circumstances, do no justifying it, there will be pain. So remember, throughout this session, regardless of what triggers come up, to breathe. Notice what you're doing with the breath. So previous chapter, Richard, a successful man in his late 30s, following the breakup of another marriage, had contacted Michael. Richard felt like his life was a mess and was desperate and wanted Michael's help. He looked at the purpose of pain, that the body as an energy field, and pain is a signal of dis-ease, not disease, but dis-ease. It tells the system that somewhere within there is something physically, mentally, or emotionally out of place. It's not an enemy, but a friend in disguise. When we don't want to listen to the feedback the system gives us, it gets our attention by yelling pain. So have you had thoughts like, why is this happening to me again? Why are they doing this to me again? Why am I doing this to myself again? Why can't life just cooperate? Choose one pattern you have got going on in your life that you'd like to take a look at through these sessions. And remember to breathe. And you could just jot down a pattern that you may have. Oh, Michael, you're muted.
Excuse me, I'm back again.
Mhm.
So when I first started writing the book, the title of the book was The Miracle of Forgiveness, which wasn't a title that wowed me or anybody else. And there was a magazine, a singles magazine in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I was living, and they had asked me to write an article on relationships. And I wrote, and when I write, I'm slow. I write and I rewrite and I rewrite and I rewrite just to get everything right. And I finished writing the article and I picked it up to read it over one more time. And the first line in it was, why is this happening to me again? Why is everybody the same? Basically, these questions, you just triggered that for me. And that's when I realized, oh, that's the title of my book. Why is this happening to me again? And I feel so blessed that the universe reserved this title for me because it's such an obvious one. I mean, virtually everybody gets a grin on their face. Sometimes it's more of a grimace than a grin when they hear that title because it's the game most people play. And you know, the world, one of the things the world does is it robs us of the awareness that we are by nature creators. And when you realize that you're a creator and that according to the energetic patterns you hold within you, you create everything that happens in your world. And most of the creation that people engage in is unconscious. What this work is about is bringing the unconscious conscious and cleaning it up.
So Richard expresses relief at the understanding more about what drove his mind and caused his pain. It had never occurred to him that what showed up in his mind, his reality, could possibly be different from what happened in the world, actuality. Richard acknowledged that he lived totally unaware that denial could distort realities in the mind so completely. Grasping that principle struck a chord of recognition for him. So Richard had experienced a few days earlier how the world could be different from what shows up in his mind. He was in a restaurant enjoying a steaming cup of coffee when the waitress came by and took it. He didn't give her the chance to explain. I just snapped at her before I saw the fresh cup of coffee in her other hand. She had seen me spill the coffee in the saucer and was attempting to keep me from making a mess of my clean suit.
One of my favorite quotes that comes from Carl Jung is this. He says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And too often, you know, as that picture, great picture you've selected for that particular topic, something supportive, nurturing, loving comes along and we look just like Richard in this picture. Because our craziness gets projected in our realities that we then pretend are caused by other people. Got to be cleaned up.
So I've never thought in these terms before, but what you are saying helps me make sense of that situation. When I turned and saw her picking up my cup, I thought, don't touch my coffee. I was quick to attack. I now realize her reality was probably something like, oh, that cup is about to drip. I'd better grab it, Richard concluded. Who is responsible for the realities that come from your mind? And what is reality? So reality 1 is anger. People take things from me. Don't touch my coffee. Actuality, reality 2, service. I take care of people. Oh, that cup is about to drip. I better grab it.
And there are two things that are really important to changing your reality. One of them is that, first of all, you've got to recognize you're never looking at the world with your eyes. It's not possible. All the eye does is receive light energy. It's the brain that sees, and the brain sees its content and pretends its content belongs to the world, and that's always a lie. Our realities always tell us more about the content of our mind than the world we think we're looking at. And so two things have to occur in order to change your mind. The aberrant content, the content based on hostility or fear, has to be removed. The tool for doing that in the ancient Aramaic language was called forgiveness. Notice we live in a culture that tells us forgiveness is about how I have a painful reality in me, but it's all your fault. It's okay. I'll let you off the hook. I'll forgive you. Forget it. Never, ever, ever forgive anybody for anything. But what we're going to say is forgive continuously. Remove the aberrant content from your mind, the hostility and fear-based content from your mind, any and every time it comes up for you. So that's half of the process. The other half of the process is to build some new brain cells. And when I talk about building brain cells, I'm not talking about, new physical tissue. I'm talking about the fact that every cell in your structure is what in this work we call a brain cell. It has the capacity to store information. So storing information, much like, we've got a hard drive, we bring magnetic signals in and they're stored on the hard drive. So we're building new information on the hard drive. Building brain cells is building new information into your structure. And this, every cell in your body has the capacity to store information, therefore is a brain cell. That's why if somebody goes into a particular kind of rage or fear or what have you, what do they say? Their gut just tightened up. Well, what happened? That's the part of the brain that the aberrant information stored in. So start observing your tissue structure and what's going on. And what you refuse to deal with ultimately will become your disease process. Literally, the only thing that kills us is energy in tissue, brain cells, that doesn't belong there in that tissue. So this work, half of this work is about removing that and then engaging in storing information that is based in truth, is based in human life, which again is love.
He thought, we have been trained to think that giving up responsibility for ourselves is easier than being responsible. It is not. Good work, Richard. It's exciting to see through new eyes, isn't it? In my experience, most people think everyone is experiencing the same thing I am. Why don't they understand me? The truth is that at every moment, every person has experienced a different reality, and seldom do our realities match exactly, explains Michael. If you don't make room in your heart and mind for other people's realities to be different, especially in your intimate relationships, there is going to be trouble. I experienced
Great
this.
video, great visual. I love the way you pick out your visuals, Inka. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Recap to clarify. The waitress and thousands of other Richards has done this too. Did some think that is their reality was positive, something loving. The actual event between us was neutral after all. Picking up a cup of coffee is just picking up a cup of coffee. The waitress was trying to help, but her action was trigger for Richard's reality. They are taking something away from me. He attacked her to protect himself from losing something, a reality that was happening only in his own head. Richard became quiet. All animations disappeared. Tears rolled down his face and he could hardly speak. Richard realized this happened all the time between him and his mother. He'd do something he thought she would appreciate, and instead he got yelled at or beat up for it. He never understood why. No matter how hard he tried, he could never get it right. Living with her was like walking through minefields.
Back a couple of years ago, Jeannie and I were in a store, a grocery store, and we took our cart and we're going up to check out. And there was a woman in front of us that had a little boy that was maybe 2.5 or 3 years of age. And she had grapes in the grocery bag or in the grocery cart. And this little boy wanted grapes, and no, you're not getting them. And big fight ensued, big screaming match. And the woman checked out ahead of us, and she pulled her cart over, and I stepped out of line and went and got the car to bring it up to the door. Jeannie checked out. So by the time Jeannie checked out, this woman was behind her, and Jeannie was standing at the door of the grocery store waiting for me to pull up. And the woman came out with this little boy, and this is a kid like 2.5 or 3 years of age, and brings things up just to think about how insane this is. And she heard the little boy saying to his mother as they're going out the door, "Mom, I love you. Please don't beat me." Like a kid under 3. Why would a kid under 3 even have the brain cells for such an idea to say, "Don't beat me," and to con her with, "I love you"? And think about just an experience like that, like the experience Richard's having here. What do you suppose happens when this little toddler that weighs, 25 pounds, and what do you suppose happens when he becomes a 280-pound, 6'4" guy in a relationship with a woman? And she triggers those brain cells into activity. What reality shows up in her mind? You want to wonder why child abuse happens, why spousal abuse happens? What do you suppose occurs? This is the root of the insanity in our culture. And, we've all been there. We've all gone through it. Yeah, there are people who are pious and pretend they don't do any of that. But if you look at them in the back room, I actually talked about it the other day on the radio show. There's someone had invited us to watch a movie. There's so much abuse going on in the political system here. And I was asked to watch this video. It's on Amazon, and it's called Happy Shiny People. Just one piece of this. It's a docuseries about a fundamental religious group. And this fundamental religious group claims to have, or apparently has had, since the 1960s, about 2.5 million people go through their program. And one of the things they do is they train people on raising children. And they explain this thing they call blanket time. Apparently, in this cult, blanket time starts with a kid when they're about 6 months of age. And here's how it goes. The mother puts the child on a blanket and has some kind of a toy the child's attracted to, and puts it on the blanket just out of reach of the child. When the child reaches for the toy, the mother hits him or her. If the child reaches for the toy again, the mother hits the child and hits the child and hits the child and hits the child until the child no longer reaches for the toy. And they consider that now they've broken the spirit of rebellion implanted by Satan by so doing. When I saw that, when I heard this explanation of this thing that some 2.5 million people have been engaged in some way, shape, or form, it made so much sense that there's so much verbal, mental, and emotional violence coming out in this country at this point. Because if you train a child by hitting them at 6 months of age, what kind of reality structure have you implanted in that child? What kind of violence do you suppose they're going to feel good about doing in the future? And these are the kinds of issues that need to be cleaned up on a global scale. You know, it's crazy. It's insane. And it's time for us to wake up to who we are as human beings, to who we are as the presence of love, and realizing that our realities are based in these kinds of experiences, and not only experiences of our own, but they're also generational. And you go back to the Aramaic language, and if you go back into the ancient scriptures, this is the whole conversation. This is what the ancient scriptures are about. Now, certain groups of people, you know, if you think of the Western scriptures, the New and the Old Testament, people will call that Judaism or Christianity, and they think that's a religious text. But in fact, that text was simply about how the human mind works and how to heal the human mind. You might remember there's a place in there where they said, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. And you go, take care of the heart. What's my heart got to do with, you know? Well, in the Aramaic language, the word heart means the unconscious. They were saying, take care what's in your unconscious. Take care what's energetically been implanted in your brain cell structure, in your tissue structure, and clean it up. In fact, there's a different place where they say, you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother. Now, that's not a bleeding heart statement, forgive from your heart. No, they were literally knew what they were talking about. They're saying, you need to go into your unconscious, and everything in your unconscious, in your heart, that you project into your brain's image of someone else, and you blame them for your pain, that pain is coming from your own unconscious. It's energy stored within you. You must remove from your heart everything you put into your brain's image of your brother in order to clean up your life. And that's all been twisted and turned. So it's supposedly something to do with religion. It's got nothing to do with religion. It's the most profound understanding when you get to the Aramaic of how the human mind works and how to clean it up. It's the most profound thing that's ever shown up on earth. Unfortunately, today, if the man named Yeshua were to sit in most organizations where they supposedly speak about his work, Yeshua is the real name of the man they call Jesus. Nothing religious meant here at all. And if he actually sat in places where they were supposedly talking about what he said, here's what he'd say. He'd say, that's all Greek to me. Because his words were translated into Greek, and the foundation of his teaching was shattered. Until you get back to that original Aramaic and you see the genius, the brilliance of how to clean up the human mind. The fact that I think today they've counted up something like 32,000 different sects of so-called Christianity, each one saying, we've got the truth. We're not here to tell you what the truth is. We're here to offer you tools for how to come to a direct experience of actuality, which is truth. Each one of us is designed to have that personally experienced, not hear somebody else who tells us about it and then tells us what it is and how we're supposed to live around it. So the objective of this work is to give, literally, our ultimate commitment is to take this to every mind, heart, and being on the planet, so every person can do the work that allows them to arrive at a direct personal experience of actuality. That's when we'll know the truth. And then it'll be difficult to put into words, because words simply represent what each person has stored in their minds, and some of that's pretty crazy. So it's about cleaning it up. Hope that makes sense for everybody. Generational patterns.
So I wonder how many people I have destroyed with the same behavior. How many times have I treated others like that and not realized what I was doing? Man, I don't think there are enough apologies in the world for the people I've acted that out with. Do I feel stupid? He mumbled to himself.
And this is the point where people will tend to take the generational pattern of self-condemnation and he'll drive himself into the ground with guilt. That's not the objective of the work. The objective here would be with Richard to recognize, okay, so Richard, notice that you've got some aberrant generational realities. So now what we want to do is support you in returning yourself, restoring yourself to the experience of love, and start removing these things. Sitting around being stupid, hey, that's the language you heard from generations back. It's time for that to be healed. There is no stupid human being. Every human being is the presence of love, and every human being has that genius within them. Now, maybe there are some bodies that it's difficult for that to come through, but that's the truth about every one of us. And that's what we're looking to get to with this work.
The reason Richard attacks, so reality is to protect what he believes is his. The next step was to see that the pattern was learned from his mother. Richard, your next step is to see that attacking is a pattern you learned from your mother. Listening to your perception of the interaction with her tells me a lot about the content of your mind.
If you just listen to your words, Shakespeare wrote several centuries ago, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. You're talking about the unconscious. One of the first clues that you'll get as to what needs to be cleaned up in your mind is the words you use. Because the words you use will always tell you, first and foremost, about the content of your own mind. Words based in hostility or fear, and you maybe are talking, you think you're talking about someone else, but what you're really revealing is what's going on in your own unconscious. Your words always telegraph what's going on. And when you listen to people's words, especially when they say, well, I'm never going to do that. Guess what? Watch. That's where they're going. That's what they're going to be doing next. And of course, if we observe ourselves and our own words, we can become acquainted with our own unconscious and get out of the state where those unconscious dynamics become our fate. And we can clean up the generational patterns. These are things that have been established generation upon generation upon generation upon generation. If you go back to what are the ancient metaphors for this in the Old Testament, there's a story about this group of people, pretty bright group of people. In fact, if you look at their writing, they understood, astronomy very well. And they tell us that this group of people got lost in a 35 square mile sandy place called a desert. And they got lost in that desert for 40 years. Now, think about that. Here are people who know exactly how astronomy works. They know the sun rises, the sun sets. They would know how to follow the sun. Do you think they were possibly lost in a 35 square mile hot sandy place for 40 years? No. The desert, again, is a code word for the unconscious. And most people, if we took a survey of everybody here and asked you at what age you started to wake up and ask real questions about yourself and what was going on, the average person, it's about 40. Most people spend the initial years of their lives, they've been brainwashed, they've been programmed by the world, and they just get lost in that brainwash. 40 years in the desert means 40 years running around, creating your life unconsciously, and it keeps coming to bite you in the butt, and you keep saying, why is this happening to me again? And then sooner or later you wake up and you take a breath and you go, I've been through this particular reality 87 different times with 42 people, different people. I'm the only one that was there every time. Maybe I'm involved here. Maybe this has got something to do with me. Then you open the gate and you start to clean up your life. You open what in the ancient teachings was called the veil of the temple. Now, churchianity has told us the veil of the temple is this purple curtain in the church. It's not about a purple curtain in the church. The temple is your body-mind unit. The veil is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. It's got to be opened in order to clean up your life. Because if you never open it, it'll keep reflecting in your world. It'll keep reflecting in your perception. It'll keep reflecting in your physiology. It'll keep reflecting in your relationships. Open the veil, start cleaning up what's there, and everything changes. And it is, without doubt, the most exciting journey you could possibly make. Space exploration has nothing on doing your own inner work. Nothing.
So where did you learn your patterns that are creating your reality? So you may want to look at the issue you might have wrote down at the beginning. And where did you learn your patterns that are creating your reality?
And breathe. This veil of the temple that I spoke of, you'll notice when people are in pain or trauma, the first thing they do is hold their breath. This veil of the temple, this artificial barrier, we're not designed to have an unconscious mind. If you talk to the average psychologist today, they'll tell you 80, 90, 95, maybe as much as 98% of our thinking is unconscious. We're not designed to have an unconscious. The veil of the temple is that barrier that needs to be opened and remove us from our unconscious conditions. And then consciously creating our realities. Consciously, out of the truth of who we are as active present love, creating what we choose to have happen in our lives. So breathing is a key because the veil is shut down by holding the breath. The veil is opened back up by breathing. You'll notice people in trauma aren't breathing very much. Most people spend most of their lives subventilating all the time. That means they're living out of an unconscious condition. They're being driven by and they're creating out of unconscious dynamics. When you first start accessing unconscious dynamics, it's not very pretty. It can be, in fact, I was going to say traumatic, but the point came up on our radio show today. And Jeannie was reading some writing that she's been reading on the radio show and talked about how painful it is to heal. And the truth is, it's not painful to heal. And when you have a memory of pain, you're just having a memory of pain. Now, if people don't know that, they can re-empower the pain and make it a whole big trauma again. The truth is, when you start opening up, people tend to fall into what they're opening and re-empowering the pain as though it's real today. When you recognize it's just a memory of pain and you breathe, a whole different thing happens. And those old painful realities that we work so hard to keep shut down and not look at, and sometimes they're generations and generations old, changes everything. That's what we're here to do and to support you in doing.
So Richard acknowledged that he had felt devastated by his mother, and in spite of pretending that they have a great relationship, he avoids her, even to this day. As Michael talked him through his fear of feeling sadness about what he had uncovered, helping to create a safe place for Richard to be honest with himself, he spoke again of his fear of being destroyed by what might surface. I do often feel like that for myself, that fear of what might surface when I open up to these teachings.
Yeah. But just remember that it's a memory of pain. It's not actual pain.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know that, you can re-empower it and it becomes a whole actual reliving of the pain, but it's just a memory.
So what emotions are you avoiding through fear of what may surface from healing? So what emotions may you be avoiding through the fear of what may surface from healing? I know for me, one of the things that came up while I was creating this was that fear of being the bad child, the bad person now. I think due to childhood of that whole program of you're going to be the naughty girl or the bad girl. It was that fear of, what if I'm the bad girl?
And the thing to get here is if you breathe, it's safe to access anything and everything that's in you. And when you allow yourself to access things in the presence of love, they dissolve. That's it. They just fall apart. So the practice of bringing love present to your mind and allowing things to surface and embracing those things makes all the difference in the world.
So Richard's fear of being destroyed was an old reality that needed to be exposed fully in order to be healed. Assuring Richard it is safe to look at whatever came up in his mind, inviting him to be aware that a memory of pain is just a memory, and he did not need to re-empower his old pain as though it were true, present moment pain. He had survived the trauma when he first felt it and locked the experience in his body. He would survive it. He would survive it to release as the old energy moved out of his system. So taking a moment to just breathe. So within moments, Richard, through simple breathing and accepting that he was safe, was feeling better and seemed surprised at how much easier it had become to breathe. Breathing through the surfacing of old, hidden feelings allows their release. So we're just going to take a moment just to breathe.
Everybody breathing?
It takes courage to face yourself and be vulnerable enough to feel your true feelings and honest enough to look at your real thoughts. I certainly feel like this often when I'm doing a worksheet. I just want to cover up and pretend that I didn't see it.
Well, oftentimes power persons have instilled in us that if we're thinking that, then we're bad, we're wrong, we're dirty, we're, all kinds of descriptors. And until that's cleaned up, it's a challenge. I mean, there's a significant, most every human being has a deeply significant amount of work to do. That's all. And I don't care where you are on the spectrum, whether you were, born in Cabbagetown or whether you're living at the top of the mountain with the king. Nobody's any different. I don't care whether it's the millionaire business person or the president or the prime minister. Every one of them was a kid at one point. Every one of them has a family history. And if you look at the history of humans, it's not very pretty. I mean, they talk a lot about the violence and such that's going on in the world today, and there's certainly a significant amount of it, but it's nothing. You talk about the starvation. I mean, we have come so far in the last 100 years. The number of people starving is comparatively, nil. Still too many people starving, but if you look at the number of people of goodwill who've done work to support and assist the upliftment of the planet, it's amazing. And yet the place where that hasn't for most people started to happen yet is in here. This is the exploration that really needs to happen.
So Richard's inability to look directly at his thoughts of blame caused them to surface when he least expected. They would run out of control and cause his actions to be out of proportion with the situation he faced. His blame thoughts became generalized. His reaction, attacking the waitress, for example, was generalized from the realities he learned from his early interactions with his mother, who attacked to protect herself. This dynamic was the source of the emotional explosion that drove people away, the type of reverberation that often goes on for decades after the original reason for blaming has passed. He thought, life is an opportunity to heal. Use it well. So you grew up behaving towards others as you perceived your mother did towards you, probably because you saw mom as successfully enough to model your behavior after her. That behavior worked to control you, but did it endear your mother to you? No, I hated it when she did that. It drove me away from her. So it accomplished the goal of controlling you, but you detested being controlled. You hated your mother's behavior, but have you become just like her? That's the harsh reality of becoming the thing that we don't want to become. The belief that someone else can be responsible for the output of your mind is called projection. Who in your past did you detest? That those behaviors continually show up for you. Remember to breathe.
So let's take a look here at what happens. If I have a television set, can I open that tube and find people in there and objects, and, chairs and couches? No, there's no such thing in there. An appearance is made in picture form when you have a device that knows how to decode a signal coming in through the antenna. Now, you can't take the wires of the antenna, look in it and see what's happening, looking through the antenna on the roof at what's going on in the neighborhood, any more than you can look through your eyes and see what's going on in the world. It's silly. It's just plain silly to think that you can. It's impossible. But when you have a conversion device, back a few years ago here in the US, all television broadcasts are what they call analog. Analog means there's first of all, if you're watching a particular station, you're watching channel 10, there's an underlying, what they call a carrier frequency. It's an energy pattern that carries the basic signal into your TV, and then superimposed on it is a picture. And the TV knows how to decode the picture, take it out of the carrier signal, and show it to you on the screen. So it's decoding. A few years ago, they decided that instead of analog signals here in the US, that all broadcasting is going to be changed to digital, which meant if you didn't have a digital decoder, you couldn't watch television. It was interesting. The government said, well, they didn't quite say this, but they might as well have. We got to keep everybody brainwashed with this TV. So what we're going to do is, if you don't have a new TV that has a digital decoder, then we're going to pay for you to have a decoder box. We'll pay for it, put it in your house so you can keep watching TV. And they changed so the carrier wave is still there. So channel 13, channel 12, channel 2 is a specific frequency. And there's an antenna that picks that frequency up. There's a decoder in the TV that decodes it. So they switched it all over to where they could decode digital signals instead of analog. Well, the mind is the same. Information comes in, taste, touch, smell, hearing, sight. It's all frequency, it's all energy. We listen to Einstein. Einstein says this: on such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy. Energy whose vibrations have been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. We don't live in a material world. We live in an energetic world. And so information comes in through the senses, and according to what's resonated from within by those frequencies, by those energies, the mind decodes and turns that from information, analog, or digital, into a picture. So each of us has this decoder that turns whatever's moving inside of us into pictures. So I can have someone coming to me in the most loving way, but I'm in a miserable mood. And, maybe I'm that child that was 3 that said, "Mom, please don't beat me. I love you." And someone comes in, and that happens to be what's kind of moving in me. And they're there to honor me and cherish me and have fun with me. And I turn that picture into them being there to attack me. And I literally see that. That's the world I see, even though it never happened. If your mind is continuously generating decoded pictures of pain and trauma, it's because there's pain and trauma in you. And if you hold to pain and trauma, because we are energetic beings and the law that governs energy is resonance, then we'll resonate somebody into our space to do it to us, pardon me, again and again and again. There's a book about that, I think. It's called Why Is This Happening to Me Again? So when you realize that, the again experience is in here. It's not out there. Yes, that one out there will replicate it, but the again experience is in here. And the only place it can be changed is in here. It can't be changed out there. It's not possible. Doesn't matter how many people you beat up, push away, or do war with and kill, the painful experience, as long as it's in here, is going to keep playing out. And this law of resonance, and the law of resonance, simply stated, says when two energy fields are in tune or in harmony with each other, there's an interaction between them. There's an exchange of information between them. If I have a middle C tuning fork and I hit it on a desk, it starts to vibrate. I put it in front of a second middle C tuning fork, nothing's happening with the second tuning fork, and all of a sudden the second tuning fork starts to vibrate. Resonance creates motion. If I have a middle C tuning fork vibrating, I put it in front of a middle A tuning fork, what happens in the middle A tuning fork? Absolutely nothing. No resonance, no energy exchange. If I have two baby grand pianos and I open the back of each piano and I hit a middle C on one of the pianos and I go and look at the hundreds of strings in the back of the second baby grand piano, only the strings associated with middle C are going to be moving in that second piano. Now, piano 1 is not going to come up over and crawl up on piano 2. It just creates internal motion. But in the human realm, resonance creates motion toward. Whatever I hold in me as the predominant resonant energy is a frequency that I am radiating. I don't have to say a word. It's a frequency that I'm radiating that will draw somebody to me. And I may draw somebody to me that's there to be loving and nurturing and caring. And all of a sudden they turn into a mad banshee. It's like, what just happened? If the energy that I was holding was that of, I need somebody to beat up on me, I need a mad banshee, and a person comes to me that has that capability, my resonance will draw that out of them. Now be careful, because some people who are in the denial game will say, there you go. Now you just prove it to me, Michael, it's all their fault. No, that's not what I proved. What I proved is whatever shows up in your life will always reflect what you're holding within you. Now, the person who shows up being the mad banshee, it doesn't mean I'm to blame for them. You'll hear people say, well, see, you heard Michael Rice. He told you that if I show up like a mad banshee, it's your fault because you needed one. No, that's a misinterpretation. If you show up as a mad banshee, it's because you have a mad banshee within you. It's because you have that insanity in you. That's your responsibility. I'm responsible for the fact that it's showing up in my face, but you're responsible for the fact you're doing it. And in that situation, each person has their opportunity to heal. And most relationships are based in matching bags of garbage. Most relationships, well, all relationships operate through resonance. That energy exchange, people are attracted to each other through resonance. And, we start out with the, I love you. And before long, it's wartime. Why? Because of the matching bags of garbage. And ultimately, my offering is that relationships are designed, we do a workshop called Healing Through Relationships. Relationships are designed to heal you. Relationships are designed to bring up in you whatever you need to be responsible for and heal. If you don't do that, then you'll deny it, you'll put it into your brain's image of someone else, and you'll blame them. You're sure it's all their fault that you're feeling this. But you notice how long they've been gone and you're still feeling it. Why are you still feeling it? Because it's within you. It's not about them. So the forgiveness process allows the perceptual constructs based in pained content to be collapsed. And when they collapse, you get to drop into them. And when you drop into them, you get to clean them up. Again, it's not a Dr. Feelgood process. It can be pretty intense, but it's doable. And it takes some time. A lot of people won't hang around long enough to build the brain cells for a whole new way. Well, look, Michael, yeah, that sounds like pretty good stuff you got. I got $5 in 5 minutes. Tell me everything you know. You're not going to get it in 5 minutes or 5 days or 5 years. You're not going to get it. Just the way it is. I've been developing and doing this work for 50 years plus. And my observation is someone who picks up the tools and actually starts to use them, that in order for them to really begin to comprehend it, takes 5 to 10 years. It's that massive a shift. You know, when you realize that in us is generations and generations and generations of programming. Literally, every energy we engage in is stored holographically in every cell in our structure, including the sperm and the egg. So were you to conceive a child tomorrow, that child would have in its structure every thought you've ever thought, every feeling you've ever had, every word you've ever spoken, every reality you've ever generated is stored in our genes, passed from generation to generation. It's a massive database. If we took every huge cray supercomputer in the world and linked them all together so they functioned as one unit, it would not match the capacity of one human form to store information. That's how big the storage device is. That's how efficient the storage device is. So when you go in and you start to clean it up, expect to be doing the work 10, 20, 30, 40. I've been doing this work for better than 50 years now, and I'll offer that the deepest, most important, most insightful work that I've done personally in terms of my own personal healing process. This is all just an outgrowth of my own personal healing process. The most important work I've done in the last 2 or 3 years. And that's just the way it works. But remember, recognize that what you're doing is you're cleaning up patterns that in many cases are generations and generations and generations old. If you go back to that story again that I spoke of earlier about the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years, if you read that story, you'll notice that there was a key to get out of the desert. How did they get out of the desert? They said the old generation had to die off. That didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genare. It means cause. All of the causes held in the mind have to go. And, you know, the objective, once you got out of the desert, you got to go to the promised land. What is the promised land? Is that some magical religious place? No. The promised land is just the land of conscious co-creation. You get to claim your creatorship, and you get to consciously create your life with other people who want to create the life you want to live and want to create out of the presence of love. And then when things pop up, the next layer comes up for healing, then you've got a team to support you in the healing process. So it behooves each person to build a support team around you of people who understand the work and are doing their work. Does that fit? Make sense for everybody? Are you breathing? I hope so. Right, Julie, I'm with you. And I'll hold the space with you too. Let's go for it.
Sorry, I was muted. So when I find that negative feeling inside of me, do I need to think about where it's coming from? Or, and I've not finished the sentence. Do you want to just ask it, Corey?
Something? Or is it not worth to do that, to go yeah, I don't know what to do then with that feeling when it is inside me. I thought it is from another person. It's not about me. But when it is about me, I don't know how to solve that, how can I heal that? What is the next?
So my offering, Corey, is you know exactly how. You've done worksheets, you know exactly how. That's how it's done. That's the main tool. Whatever the situation is, if I've got a painful reality going, what I need to do is to forgive as to my painful reality. You got the worksheet. Now the mind can resist and say, oh, I don't know, but it's really pretty simple. If a painful reality comes up, what do I want to do? I want to collapse it. How do I collapse it? Well, it's being driven by a goal. You'll notice you're never upset, about people in your life unless they violate a goal that you hold for them. There's always a goal involved. So the key way into that part of the mind, the key way into healing is forgiveness. What does forgiveness look like? In Aramaic, the word forgive is shabag or shabak, and it literally translates to cancel. You locate the goal that's driving your pain perception, causing your mind to use that unconscious data, and you cancel that goal. When you cancel that goal, that pain perception collapses in on itself. That's what gives you access to the underlying unconscious dynamic.
Okay.
So yes, you know how to do it, but it's easy to forget. I understand. You know, it took me, what I just said to you in the last literally minute and a half, took me 35 years working full time with the Aramaic forgiveness process to be able to explain and to understand. So, you know, you'll probably have to, as all of us do, hear it a few more times and it'll go click. And then the first thing that comes up in your mind, rather than the pain or the trauma or the confusion, will be, oh, I need to do some forgiveness. I need to get out a worksheet. I need to pull my phone out, get the app.
Yeah, I have that app. And is it so that then come that feeling of, oh, my God, is that is my feeling, so that I feel guilty, or yeah, I feel so bad about having that inside me and not having solved that until now.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and if you look back at your power persons, you look back at your generations, how many of them do you suppose felt bad? How many of them, if you think back and just remember, can you remember them feeling bad? It's where you learned it.
Yeah.
And it's what needs to be worked through. You know, this is the essence of the codependent dynamic. And you know, you've been around this work long enough now that you're ready to go to the next level. And you might want to think about doing the self-study codependence intensive. I mean, it lays everything out in a systematic fashion through over 90 hours of video that you can take and go through and start building the brain cells and doing the work on another level of cleaning it up. You know, we're coming together once a week here for an hour or two, but that doesn't have the impact of changing a multi-generational database in a couple of weeks. As I say, it's a process. It's going to take some time. So dealing with those kinds of issues, you might really want to seriously look at the codependence to interdependence communication practice self-study and start doing that on another level. The intensive itself includes 2 personal code evaluations that will, it's an assessment that tells you where your biggest blocks are and where your learning is. That opens a space and makes the whole body of work a lot easier. So that might be something to look at.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I understand. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Let's go for it.
So key thought: we tend to become that which we hate.
That's a real bummer.
It's a big bummer.
Yeah.
I'm really going to have to spend some time sorting through this, but I want to understand how you figured all this out from the little I have said. Okay, let's look at the feeling destroyed by your mother. It appeared that it was easier to admit that you destroyed people than to think of her doing that to you. If you believe treating others the way your mother treated you destroyed them, it makes sense in your mind she did the same when she behaved that way towards you.
I've read this before on the study club, but this fits really well here. So I'm going to read a quote that comes from a gentleman that lived from 1651 to 1715. I'm not sure exactly what year he wrote it, but you know, it's at least 300 years ago. So it wasn't written with any of us in mind. However, this man, his name was Francois Fenelon, described what it is that we're going to get to look at. And that means every one of us. I don't care if you're the king. In fact, from what I know of the king, probably he's got as much to deal with as just about anybody else with the family system that he was from. I watched recently the film series, I think it was on Netflix, on The Crown, and it looks like it was a pretty heavy-duty life. I mean, some forgiveness work would be really useful there. If you happen to know him, I'd be glad to work with him. Anyway, so here's what Francois Fenelon wrote over 300 years ago. As the light increases, we see ourselves to be worse than we thought. We are amazed at our former blindness as we see issuing forth from the depths of our heart a whole swarm of shameful feelings, like filthy reptiles crawling from a hidden cave. We never could have believed that we had harbored such things, and we stand aghast as we watch them gradually appear. But while our faults diminish, the light by which we see them waxes brighter, and we're filled with horror. Bear in mind, for your comfort, that we only perceive our malady when the cure begins. And that's what needs to be cleaned up in every mind on the planet. And that's the biggest threat. Carl Jung did some writing about that. And he said that the demise of society would not be from a physical threat. He said it would be from the collective psychosis. Here's what Carl Jung wrote about the threat to society. He says, greater than all physical dangers are the tremendous effects of delusional ideas, which are yet denied all reality by our world-blinded consciousness. Our much vaunted reason and boundless overestimated will are sometimes utterly powerless in the face of unreal thoughts. The wolf inside the man is far more a threat to human existence than external forces. When mental forces become so toxic as to harm our overall well-being on an individual and collective level, a psychic epidemic can result. He warned that modern society was prone to collapse due to delusional ideas. The man or woman who's unconscious of the historical context lets slip his link with the past is in conscious danger of succumbing to the crazes and delusions engendered by all novelties. So he's saying we have to look at what we carry around inside of us as our BS. That's belief system. If you happen to have different reality for those initials, BS is belief system. And when you start to look at it, it can be quite a challenge to clean it up. So here are the tools. Here's how you do it. And, you know, we've done the best we can do to provide every bit of support that we can give you. 5 days a week, an hour a day, actually 2 hours a day. There's a radio show called Mind Shifters Radio. The archives are available on our website. Our website's whyagain.org. You can go to the website. There's a microphone on the page. Click on the microphone, drill down. We've got thousands of hours of conversation, just like this one. You know, I haven't counted up how many hours of conversation we've done in the last year and a half. Yinka, I really don't have any idea. But I think we're up well over 4,000 hours on the radio show. And the radio show is basically this conversation. You know, we're just doing what we do on the radio show, answering questions, laying out the principles. And so you can go to our website and start going through it. Or if you want to take it to and then the radio show, you can download the app on your phone. And all you need to do is go to your app store and type in the words Heartland, one word, Heartland, Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. Download the app. From within the app, you can write directly to us. Any page you're on, if you've got a question, just click a button, type your question, hit send. Jeannie will read your question on the next radio show. I'll answer it, or she'll answer it, or between us we'll answer it, and then we'll send you back a link to the radio show so you can listen to your answer. And if you have access to an American phone number, you know, you can call in. Most people here in the States just call into the radio show directly and listen to it. So that's there. So there's all the free support we can offer you. And if you'd like to support this work, which You know, Jeannie and I have stopped traveling the last 4 years since her dad got sick and we had a grandbaby. And so, you know, cash flow has shrunk somewhat since we did that. There's also a way to do things on a paid basis. And right now we do have that 90 video hours, a significant body of work around forgiveness, around codependence, around communication. And so, you know, that's a way to get paid support. And that 90 hours is a self-study. As I say, it includes 2 of the evaluations. So you get to look at what's going on in your mind, where the blocks are. And the cost of the whole 90-hour self-study is $600 US. And if anybody's interested in doing that and you'd like to do a payment plan of some kind, I'm happy to work with you in that regard too. So there's paid support, there's free support. We're here to make it available and pass it on. And we invite you to do the same, pass it on to somebody else.
So it's more important at this stage that you be responsible for accepting that the pattern and modeling your behavior after hers rather than trying to blame your behavior on her. I see many people who take inventory of everyone else's faults, but never acknowledge their role in adopting those faults as their own. This leads to more blame and is a justification many use to avoid accountability. It is a great excuse for staying in old patterns, letting oneself off the hook and not having to make change.
And the cycle of blaming others starts with the thought. Whenever I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, I'm in denial. When I'm in denial, I have to dissociate from the real cause that's going on inside me. This is how an unconscious mind is created. You made me mad. I just dissociated from the real cause of my anger, which is within me. I have to hide that in order to hallucinate a whole picture that you're the one who made me mad. So now that I've dissociated from that, by dissociating from it, I just really had to push it down. When I push it down, I add energy to it. When I add energy to it, I push it out into the world. And somebody's going to show up and do it to me. Somebody's going to show up and play it out with me. And when they play it out with me, it's going to come up. But here's what's going to happen. I'm going to use that data that I've dissociated from to build my brain's image of them. So now they're going to show up in my mind with my problem attached, and I swear it must be their problem. It's called projection. Now, the culture teaches that projection is when I take something that's inside of me and put it outside of me. That's not projection. That's externalization. Projection is when I take something that's inside of me and I make pictures out of it of everybody else. And I'm sure it's all everybody else's fault. And it's the biggest lie humanity has ever told themselves. And we've all told ourselves that lie. And it's time for us to stop lying to ourselves, because that's how we destroy ourselves. That's how death happens. That's how we kill ourselves. We as human beings are not designed to die. We made the process up. And this work calls to people to face everything in them that's less than love and throw it out, forgive it. And watch how health and energy and aliveness and joy in life accelerates immeasurably beyond what you could imagine. That's what we're here to do.
With Richard and the waitress, the difference between actuality, reality, and how the mind produces evidence to back up its preconceived emotions and create its experience. Richard and the waitress experience the same actuality or external event. However, the mind selected different evidence and built a reality from it. From that event, the mind selected information and assembled it to be present and radically different view of the situation. Richard's mind presented a reason to destroy, while the waitress saw an opportunity for service. Notice how each individual mind sets led to divergent experience.
That makes sense for everybody? Great, let's go for it.
So what do you believe about yourself to create what's happening in your life today? Is there anything you recognize in yourself today that is the cause of your issues? So this isn't about blame, it's recognizing in yourself today that is the cause of your issues. And remember to breathe.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that breathing thing too much. It's such a key part of our intensives. Actually, we've got a monthly support group. We're doing a mind shifters and still point breathing workshop this Saturday and Sunday. And part of the work is a process we call still point breathing. That's a way to compensate for a lifetime of holding one's breath by using the breath properly to open and just move through things in just ways that are unimaginable. So that's another way to move your work forward if you want to do something that's a paid workshop. This happens once a month, Saturday and Sunday.
Which I also recommend, as I'm part of
Pretty
it.
powerful. Yeah, when you start to use the breath properly, it's pretty powerful.
Richard had unraveled the strings of unconscious realities that drove his behavior and led to his need to attack and protect himself. He had reached into the core of his work and healed major issues. We define healing as the surfacing and letting go of the disintegrative energies of the unconsciousness and trauma. Who would think spilling coffee in a restaurant could lead to dealing with what is perhaps one of the deepest issues of someone's life? Every conflicting situation offers the same precious opportunity if you are willing to see it in the contents of healing and allowing your mind to construct a healing reality. Until you take charge of your internal reality structures, you are bound to keep experiencing whatever you are trying to avoid. Close your eyes and allow yourself to become quiet, with your awareness focused inside, thinking of that which inspires in you the clearest, strongest, most powerful love you are capable of feeling. And breathe.
So we invite people into process work here, and processing by definition in this work is the ability to keep love conscious, active, and present when something less than love surfaces. It's like, whatever's going on in your world, if you can bring love to it, you're going to be able to embrace what's moving in yourself and heal whatever's attracted those crazy experiences. Once you heal what's attracting those crazy experiences, they start to disappear. It's just, it's kind of like as night follows day. It's pretty straightforward.
I think that might be our last slide. Yeah. So we might, if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to raise your hands, or you want to put it in the chat. Or anything that you want to share that came up for you. Yeah, we've got Sandy. You can unmute.
Can I ask a question now?
Yeah, go on.
Please go for it.
Oh, thank you. I was trying to understand the thing that you were speaking about last time. So, and you gave us that there's a version of the worksheet that's shorter, and that if I had this overwhelming emotion coming over me, so I need to do something quickly, I thought I'd just, if you could just say if I understood it correctly, maybe I'll just say it quickly. So first of all, I see the situation as I perceive it, like if something bothers me, that's a first step. Then the second step is the way I would like this situation to be. So I'd like, the way I imagine or I want it to be. And the third step is like canceling the second step, basically. Like that's the short version. Is that it?
Yes. Yeah. And if you look in Yinka's archives, there are several sessions that we've done where we've walked somebody right through the whole worksheet. So you can go ahead and access those and follow that worksheet on our website. If you go to worksheets, there are at least 20 different radio shows where, again, we've walked somebody, either Jeannie or myself or the psychologist, Dr. Tim Hayes, that also does our radio show, has walked somebody through the worksheet. So the instructions are there for it. And or if you download the app, there's a link that will explain it as well, and you can ask questions there. So,
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Delighted, honored.
Does anyone else have a question or anything they want to share?
Making sense for everybody then?
We've got Julia, who's raised a hand. You can
Hey,
unmute.
Julia.
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm rocking, doing well.
Great. So my friend Sandy told me about this, and I'm really enjoying learning about your work and very excited. And I went through the Course in Miracles workbook 3 years in a row, and
Right.
I really love the Ho'oponopono process. I did a few workshops online with Joe Vitale and Dr. Hugh Lan, and
Yeah.
so your work just really resonates with me. And
Cool. Yeah, Joe wrote
about
a
the forgiveness.
review. Yeah, Joe wrote a review on Amazon of our book, and he said it was the best book he'd ever read.
Oh, that's
That was
so
pretty cool.
awesome. Yeah, I bought the book and I'm reading that now. And I
Cool.
went to the radio show the other day, for 2 days this week. And then this morning, I don't know, I'm not used to it. Like it's not in my routine yet. So I was like, oh, dang, when I remembered, oh, the radio show. But so
Put an
I'm
alarm in
really
your phone.
grateful. Yeah,
Put an alarm in
I
your
did. I
phone.
turned it on when I remembered that I had forgotten. I put the alarm on for tomorrow at 8:55.
Awesome. Cool.
And so
And you can also, are you listening through the chat room or?
The chat room. Yes, I signed up for like the month long, and I need to go to your website and listen to, because I did see a link where you explain how to interact with all your different platforms, because you're
Right.
you're very active and you have a lot going on. So I'm kind of like, wow, okay, this is a lot. And so
Because in the chat
I
room,
don't
you can
want to.
ask questions live in the show.
Yeah, I thought
Jeannie's
like
in the
if
chat
I
room.
had to like call that number, and
Oh.
what I was doing was tapping in through the website, just hitting the live button. And
Yeah.
so I think that like I can't interact unless I call through the phone number, right? Is that correct?
Actually, well, you can call through, but you can also register with, it's on Blog Talk Radio. You can register with them. They're very private with your information. And then you're
Yeah.
listening to the show live from the chat room. And so you can just type in a question and Jeannie will read it and we'll answer it. So you
Okay,
can ask
great. Yeah,
questions live on the show anytime through the chat room if you don't have, just free long distance to call into the US.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm in the US. I'm in the Bellingham,
Oh.
Washington.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, then the easiest way is just, you've probably got most everybody has free long distance on the phone.
Yeah.
Just call into the radio show. Number's
Okay.
563-999-3581, and just call in and you're listening. And then if you have a question, just push 1. I raise a hand in the control panel and Jeannie will introduce you and we'll have a conversation.
Oh, nice. Nice. Thank you so much. Yeah, and so my questions were all today about where do I sign up for the breathwork workshop that's happening this weekend?
Okay. If you drop Jeannie an email, it's JEANIE at whyagain.org.
Which I have
Jeannie,
put in the chat as well.
Okay, there it is.
You copy it
So
from
Jeannie at whyagain.org and tell her you're interested, and she'll communicate. She'll get you registered, and there are a couple of videos to watch. And there's the video that explains the mind shifter tool. And we want you to have a mind shifter and spend at least an hour to 2 hours writing before we meet on Saturday morning. So if you drop her that email, she'll get back to you and we'll get you set up for it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome.
You had also mentioned to someone earlier about a self-observation course that you self-study. Yeah, self-study.
Yeah, if you want to just inquire of Jeannie in that email, we'll send you a link that explains that too. And or if you want, I'll call you and we can chat about it if you're interested in signing up for it.
Okay. Yeah,
Cool.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Where are you in the US?
I'm in Bellingham, Washington.
Okay.
Very close to the Canadian border in the north. Yeah. So
Cool.
Where do you live?
We're in Bristol, Virginia.
Okay.
Just a little bit, about 2 hours east of Knoxville.
Okay. Nice.
Cool. All right. We'll look
I'm
forward to
really
hearing
grateful.
from
you. Yes, me too.
Delighted.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing. I think this work is just amazing and so powerful. And so thank you so much.
You're most welcome and deserving.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a thought, question, answer, idea? Well, then, Miss Yenka, we'll just say thank you and look forward to seeing you next week. Next week, we'll be doing Course in Miracles, right? That's the
next week is next week is Course in Miracles. And then if it's the following week, will be Chapter 7, the Evidential Mind.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, have a blessed one, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Blessings.
Yes. Bye, everyone. I'm just going to leave the music.
Bye. Thank you, Yinka.
Bye. Thank you, Michael.
Bye,
Thank you,
Yinka.
Yinka.
Bye.
All right. Take care.